listening to Make It, the indie film podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Make It podcast. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
And I'm your second host. Is that a thing? Second host?
Sure.
Co-host? Also host? I'm
and
your
Nick
host
Mann.
Too. You're right. Nick Bugs. What's up, people? It's good to see you again.
Papa Bear, what did Ed McMahon used to say? What was that little phraseology he would have on Johnny Carson? It was like his response.
For what? Response to
Just
what?
for anything Carson would say.
PB's over here like, wait, what? I was asleep at that time, bro. He
watched Carson.
I was a big Carson fan, but I'm not sure what you're referencing.
It was like a grunt, it
was like a ha or something like that. That was his thing.
Right. What did McMahon say? He'll think about it in a second.
No, Chris, I think it's a ha, but the first thing that came to my head, which I knew was wrong,
no. You know what it is?
Say it. I was gonna be like, hoo ha.
No, that's for Chino. But
exactly.
McMahon said, yes. That's what it was. McMahon was like, yes, yeah. I think, or maybe that was Marv Albert. Anyway,
now we're gonna have to go back and look.
He was too busy drinking.
He was drinking. Both Marv Albert and McMahon. Intern Sam, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Glad to be here.
And of course, with our normal crew today is our esteemed guest, Mariah Kramer. Mariah, say hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
It is our distinct pleasure to have you, and I'm really excited about this one because we get a chance to show some love to Nashville and show some love to the festival space, two spaces that we really love. They supported us from the beginning and helped make It podcast what it is today. Really, if you think about it, Nick, we wouldn't even be here if it weren't for festival spaces, because this podcast started by me and you going to film festivals with a tiny little journalism microphone, sticking that in people's faces, pause, and then saying, what does it mean for you to make it? And that matured and evolved, Mariah, into this podcast today. So
what's happening here, though? Like, I don't understand. He talked about the festival circuit and how wonderful that is, and how that's something that's connecting us. And I think you might have even mentioned Nashville at some point.
I did,
and yet you did not mention the connective tissue that is one Vanderbilt University.
For the people listening, Nick is wearing a Vanderbilt University hat. Of
course. Got to celebrate that, because that is the connective tissue that brought us together, my friend. And also brings Mariah to us today. So I got to shout out, VU.
Shout out to VU. Shout out to Mariah being at VU. Unlike Mariah, me and you were both on academic probation. And
never that. So not a day.
We're not in love with VU for that. But
whatever. Never that. Not a day, my friend. Not a day.
No, not you. Not you. That's true.
No.
I will tell you this, though. Listen. I haven't really talked about this. I was a terrible high school student. Terrible.
I can talk about it.
No, so I drove myself to Middle Tennessee State University. I applied for college in the office. They said my GPA was too low to get into college, but my ACT was high enough. Right. Ooh, so somehow I'd had a good ACT score, but a bad GPA, which was like basically the sign of lack of discipline and laziness. Okay. So Dr. Sidney McPhee, who runs MTSU, said, write an essay right now why I should let you in this college. He threw down a bunch of paper and gave me a pen. I had to write I wrote a 4-page, I didn't have to. I ended up writing 4 pages why I deserved or should go to college. He read it and let me in on the spot.
Oh my gosh.
And I only tell that story because I started college on academic probation.
Well, Chris,
that was a condition of letting me into school.
And I will tell you what's crazy about that.
ASAP. Boom.
One more connection between the two of us. It might be a slightly different story, but I'll just say this. I'll keep it short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
One of the things that got me into Vandy was that I actually had to write a speech and then read said speech in front of an audience of people. And then because of that speech, a certain person in the audience said, I think that Vanderbilt might be a good place for you.
Yeah.
And as a result of I just say, winning the contest associated with that speech, I was able to afford said experience at Vanderbilt. So you and I both had to write something, have it read, and basically win our way into the experience of our college education.
Isn't it great being Black?
It's like, that's a random thing to say, but it's not a random thing to say if you kind of understand what is necessary to, get into these places that you want to be.
I kid. It's all good. I'm proud of you. What was the name of the speech?
Well, I don't remember the name of the speech, but actually one of the things that I did when I was in school, I wrote a lot of poetry, as I still do now.
Yeah, me too.
But my thing, anytime I had to write something, I would find a poetic way to do it. So I wrote the speech, but I wrote it as a poem. So I think that was a differentiator for me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I
love it. Kudos. Thanks, to you.
And to you, my friend.
Yeah. And kudos to Mariah. Mariah, why don't you tell the people who you are, what we might know you for, what you're excited about, why you're on this podcast?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Mariah Kramer. I am a filmmaker and an educator. I made a short documentary called This Is My Home Now. It premiered on PBS and ran on their station for about 5 years. I think they had the rights to it. And I am actually in post-production on a short fiction film right now. I primarily focused on documentaries, but I recently made a shift over to fiction, which I can tell you a little bit more about that project later. And then also I'm a co-founder of a film festival in North Carolina called the Up Tilt Film Festival, which is a women-focused festival. And then I am a senior lecturer at Vanderbilt University, and which you guys mentioned. And we are launching our first inaugural Point of View Student Film Festival here, which I'm the co-founder of that as well.
That is incredible. And I want to just start by asking what may seem a little bit of an obvious question, or maybe, not necessarily on topic, but your title as a senior lecturer and director of undergraduate studies, how does that Venn diagram work? How does that cross over and allow you to start a festival at Vanderbilt?
Yeah. So as a senior lecturer, my primary focus is teaching rather than my research or creative work, which kind of frees me up to do more of the interaction with students. And then we have a very small department here. So I was here for 1 year, and then they asked me to come on as director of undergraduate studies because the person that was doing it was going on leave. So there needed to be a shift in that role. And I think because part of it that they mentioned was that, I have experience in community building. And one of the things that they're really trying to do in our department is to grow the department and to help build the sense of community and camaraderie between the students. So I think I was a natural fit for that, to be the director of undergraduate studies. So in that role, what I do is I advise students. I talk to them about their courses that they're taking, their academic track that they're on. And then I also just work with them to give them advice, talk about their career, and talk about, what type of work they can do with a degree in cinema and media arts.
Right off the bat, that sounds incredibly challenging, because what KPI can measure camaraderie?
Right?
I think the first
thing, how do you know you never hit your goal?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that there's always the first step, right? I think, Chris, you're spot on. I think that the camaraderie is something that comes later, but it comes after you've actually made the attempt to build a community, because camaraderie basically starts with togetherness. Yeah. So if you can bring them together, because when you're in class, I know you're in the same room, but everyone's focused on their own thing. They're focused on their own grades. They're focused on their own study, and they might have other things they're involved in. So you got to find that connective tissue that brings them together, which, obviously, like a film festival is a wonderful way to bring people together and celebrate each other, and maybe even compete a little bit as well in a different way, in a fun way. So Chris, you're spot on, because it's like, okay, once we do that, now you ask yourself the question, like, what is that camaraderie? What does that togetherness look like or feel like? And how do we really measure that? It's a good question, because Chris and I are all about data and KPIs. So it's like, what is the key performance indicator? So
it's the worst part about writing grants, right? Is like, how are you going to prove that it worked? How are you going to prove that what you did is successful, right? And that's one thing that I'm definitely thinking through. We had a couple of events happen on campus last semester that were outside of the classroom. We had some cinematographers come. We had Claudia Rashka, which is a documentary cinematographer. She did RBG, quite a few other impressive films, and she came and did a workshop. It was sponsored through Canon. And then we also had Roger Deakins come, which he was sponsored through the Nashville Filmmakers Guild.
Yep.
So
I sent a bunch of people to that.
Yeah. And students are talking about it, and we could tell that they had a good time there, but it's like, how do we measure that? How do we prove that those were successful? So we're talking about doing surveys. We're going to have like a meeting with students that attended it so they could share the information that they learned. But yeah, I'm always constantly like, how do we document that? Right. Like, I was in the room and I can feel it and I can hear it and I can see it, but how do we capture that? So we're going to work a lot through surveys right now for some of those
surveys are great. And I would say there's another thing that you could do that kind of like in the current zeitgeist of communication, it really is about, did you share it on social? Like, that's the key thing. Like, did you do the hashtag? Did you tag the thing? Like, that's it. Like, if people are willing to do that, because I think Chris and I talk about this as well pretty often about your personal brand. That's why he and I are, we're very specific about the movies that we recommend, the people that we recommend, the people that come on the podcast, because we know that our personal brand is at stake. So, you hit the mark if someone is willing to put up their personal brand and share what you've done. But you got to ask. I think Chris and I know that as well. It's like, you have to ask for the share sometimes. And if they like it, then they'll go ahead and do it. But I think that would be a great one. I know that you've got an Instagram account for the festival. Yep. So getting that thing shared and out there, I think is a great way to do it as well. What is just in case for those people who don't make it to the end of this, what is the handle for the Instagram?
It is just the Point of View Student Film Festival, and I think it's just Point of View SFF. Ooh, I hope I'm correct. But you can just search for Point of View Student Festival, and view is spelled VU.
VU. There you go. And
that's our little nod to Vanderbilt.
Full disclosure: intern Sam is a budding film student. He's a film savant, first of all, but then he's a film student at Belmont University. Belmont recently purchased Watkins Film School. This was probably before you came, or right as you were moving to Nashville in 2023, Mariah. How would you steal Sam from Belmont?
Ooh.
Well, pause. First question I have is, Sam, did you hear of Point of View before me coming on here?
I had not, actually. I had not.
See, there's that data, right?
Yeah.
We did a lot of advertising through Belmont. We reached out to a lot of the faculty members there. It's funny because it's like, is it working? Is it reaching people? So thank you for being my first litmus test there. So how would I steal Sam for the festival, or how would I steal him for our program here at Vanderbilt?
Program. Yeah.
Program. Okay. Well, I am new, so I don't have a lot of context of what the other programs are like in the area. Starting the festival has been great because I have been reaching out and meeting other faculty members. The Belcourt Theater was fantastic because I know that they work with all of us faculty across the campuses. So they were wonderful in allowing us to have a networking event where we had all the faculty come together, and I was able to pitch the festival to them. So I did meet some faculty from Belmont. But what I've been kind of noticing and thinking about and talking with my colleagues about is, one of our challenges is that we're small, right? Our program is small here, but it's also one of our benefits. It's also one of the things that students really, I think, appreciate after they go through the program, is that because it's small, you get to know every single one of us faculty really well. You get to work on our research projects, and you get to kind of really shape what you want out of the program, because we don't have a specific scaffolding or tracking that we have you do. It's just a 50-50 split between production and studies. And I think students can really shape what kind of experience they want out of it. There's not a lot of requirements of taking certain things in a certain order. So I think the smallness gives us that flexibility.
I like it. Sam. You got a contact there now. You can keep that in your back pocket just in case things get topsy-turvy across the street. So for people who aren't from the Nashville area, the greater Nashville area, for our international people, shout out to our fans in Senegal. Shout out to our fans in Nigeria, Denmark, Spain, the UK, Canada, Mexico showing up, India showing up big. For you folks that you don't know the area that well, Vanderbilt and Belmont are basically across the street from one another. And so that's why I really asked you that, because the proximity is so close. And here they are competing in this creative space with one another.
They're sharing
and they're sharing
creative space.
Well, and it's funny. It's funny you say that though, but
I think maybe they are competing a little bit, Nick. But but they're sharing too. They're sharing too.
Well, and I think the really interesting thing about that was that me coming from a space that had one major university in the town that I lived in. I came from Wilmington, North Carolina. UNCW is where I taught, and that's the big school there. There's some community colleges in the area. And then coming here and knowing that there's a plethora of schools. And I mean, the nickname of the Athens of the South, with the idea that there's so many higher education opportunities in this region, was like, rather than viewing it as like a competitive, what can I do better than you can do? I view it as like this network that needs to be tapped into. And that's really the genesis of the festival, is like, we're all doing something that's related and similar, but has differences. But how can we connect with each other? How can a Vanderbilt student connect with a Belmont student and possibly work on a project together, and pool their resources rather than trying to compete with their resources? So that's really the heart of where the festival came from and why we started the festival. It wasn't necessarily just for Vanderbilt students. It was for the region and all the students in the the
And the professors at Belmont, Chris, were like, "Oh, we hear you, Mariah. We're not going to tell our students though, because
and Sam didn't know." The ones I met were very nice and very excited.
Shout out to Stephanie Silverman and the Belcourt Theater. By the way, they're sitting right there in Hillsborough Village, and that's just sort of, for those listening that aren't from here, that's sort of like right in between these two universities. And I think if you run a festival there or film projects there, you're really going to pull people from those two places to join up. And they might meet each other, to your point, Mariah, just by chance to work on a project together. And so I really do like the idea that there's this historic independent film house that's sitting right in the middle of these two film schools and campuses. That's pretty darn cool.
And it's supported by many local benefactors, and I think grants and things as well. So it's something that is, like you said, it's historic. It is something that the community has really put their resources into. And I think, Chris, we've seen many a premiere at that theater as well.
many a premiere.
Yeah, that's right. So it's awesome. It's something. It's just part of the film community. It's not just a theater.
Yeah. And it's such a gem. I mean, not every city has that, So I think when you live here, you kind of forget and you take it for granted. But moving into this city and discovering it was like, whoa, this is a really cool resource. And Allison Inman, who does their education coordinating there, was my first contact. And she just came to one of our faculty meetings to, promote the theater, but also to ask if anybody wanted to do any seminars or anything like that there. And that's where like a light bulb went off for me, is like, she does this at all the campuses. She knows all the faculty members, and a lot of them from all the different campuses do seminars there. So it was like, there's already this built-in connection. So how can we build upon that connection?
I love it. Shout out to Ashley Inman, and shout out to the Facebook algorithm that put her on my front page when I opened Facebook this morning. True story. Like this morning I clicked Facebook.
Funny.
And it was like, you might know this person. Do you want to be friends? And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? But how are you doing this to me? I think I know how. But that's so funny that you brought her up, because just today she was put right in front of me on the front page to friend or not friend. So let's be friends. A lot of hubbub was going on last year in the media, depending on what you read, which industrial you read, about the state of documentary and it not being a profit center anymore for filmmakers. What is your thought about the state of documentary? What is your thought about PBS now as well, with the potential cutting of funding in this new cycle of elected officials here. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I work primarily in shorts. So shorts aren't really about profit and about selling anyways. So to me, documentary was never profitable. It was always a passion project. It was always about, the idea that sharing stories can make change. And I think the hardest thing is funding. And if funding gets harder, that's very, that's sad. It's difficult because it was never really about getting the funding from investors that were going to make their money back. It was from people that believed in the cause of whatever documentary you were doing in the world that I work in. So I think I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective because I wasn't ever really making those films to make money. And I also always knew that I wanted to teach. So when I went into becoming a filmmaker, it wasn't necessarily about selling my work. It was about having a space to create and to share my work. Me shifting into this world of fiction, I'm kind of shifting my thought process on all that and the need behind it. I'm working on a short fiction film right now that is a proof of concept for a longer version, either a feature or a miniseries. And that's where I'm starting into the world of like, okay, you do this to make money, right? So I am shifting my thought process on that. But just to loop back to the documentaries, my funding came directly from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting for the This Is My Home Now.
Okay.
So
awesome.
I'm so appreciative of that, right? So I don't want to see things like that shrink, and I don't want it to be harder for filmmakers, especially in the documentary world, that are working on social change type of documentaries to have a harder time finding funding. So I find it pretty disheartening.
Yeah, I think it's awesome because PBS is going to fund it, so they're obviously going to distribute it. But for these documentary filmmakers who are getting their funding from various sources, high net worth individuals, funds, et cetera, banks, their own money, whatever, if they can't find a distribution home anymore, what might happen is this slowdown of the most important stories not getting told in a time where we desperately need these stories told, maybe more than ever. And so it's a real concern about why streamers and theaters won't purchase and won't take on the distribution, responsibility for some of these really important documentaries.
Yeah. And I think, this is not my area of expertise by any means, but the algorithms, right? You mentioned that earlier, but just this idea of like the streamers are there to make money, right? So it's not about curating a programming experience. It's about what's going to get watched. What are people streaming? What are they watching? So if you click through like what the documentaries are on like Netflix or one of the bigger streamers like that, it's ones that are, going to get the attention of people. It's the true crime type of things, like what's popular, what's trending at the time. It's not about what cause needs to be talked about, right? So I think they opened up a window for space, and then now they've shifted, right? Because it's more about the bottom line.
Yeah, but I think there's always going to be room for distribution because distribution is distributed. So it might not be the Netflix of the world, but I think to your point, a lot of documentary filmmakers, if not the majority of them, aren't necessarily seeking that. They're seeking a platform, and probably the most appropriate platform for their work. So like PBS can be an appropriate platform, especially if you're doing regional work. Right. Yeah, I think that's a great thing. You're doing regional things because you have a lot of the branches saying that it needs to be something regional. They want that content. So they know it's not for a Netflix because it's not for a national or international audience. It's for something local. And then through all the causes, all the organizations, the philanthropic organizations, all these things, community organizations, they have the ability to distribute that content through their own platforms. And of course, through YouTube. So yeah, there might be that, from a profit center standpoint, that might be shifting. But I think, like you mentioned, Chris, the desire and the need to share the voices of real people right? Living real lives continues to be important, maybe more important now than ever. Right. So I think hopefully we'll see more of it. I think it just, where the money comes from will be different. And hopefully, as we're talking to our audience here, hopefully our audience will start to contribute more to these things. Like you said, Chris, a lot of times they'll get their funding from organizations or high net worth individuals. You should get the funding from everybody and anybody who believes in your cause. So crowdfunding is definitely a great way to keep that hope alive.
GoFundMe's doing some interesting things right now, so shout out to them. They are, they have a whole marketing campaign they're building around making sure people know, hey, you can do any type of fundraising here, not just LA fires or this person needs a surgery, kind of where they're in this bucket, right? Where people go right to them when there's a personal emergency, but they're like, wait a second, no, do your startup here, raise funds for your film here, et cetera. So hopefully we'll hear more about them soon on this podcast. Before we get into some audience polls with Sam, I have some housekeeping. I had a brain fart. I was saying Ashley Inman. It's Allison Inman.
Oh, yeah.
Allison. Sorry, Allison. The reason I'm saying Ashley Inman is because I used to work with an Ashley Inman, who is an awesome person. And if that's your sister, that means you're awesome, Allison. So shout out to Ashley and Allison Inman.
Hey, Chris.
So there you go. Sorry about that. My email.
No, Chris, you got to give me 1 second. I'm going to say Allison. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time. Allison. We're now going to take my voice, and we're going to put it over every time you say Ashley.
Oh, every time I say Ashley, yeah. Kate,
I love it.
Editor Kate, just throw Nick's Allison over there. It'll be like Allison over Ashley, and then we'll see if the people notice it's your voice instead of mine.
Yeah, and I had to say it that way because I wanted to say it a little weird too, right? Like Allison, right? Like no one talks like that. But
no, do it one more time. We'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do it one more time, but do it even weirder. All right, and in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Ashley, shout out to Ashley and Allison Inman. Perfect.
Was not expecting that.
The funny thing is, the rest of us were.
Yeah. Good call. Okay, let's do some audience polls. Intern Sam, can you lay it on us?
I can. So for the first poll, kind of establish a baseline here. Have you ever watched a student film?
Okay,
that's a good one.
This is kind of interesting, actually. Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
Unfortunately, no came in first with 64%.
Oh wow!
Ooh.
How many percent, Sam?
64.
Wow.
So
okay,
that's a lot. And then yes, unfortunately, as number 2, 36%.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of people who have not gone to film festivals because, I mean,
That's what
pretty much, every festival I go to.
There's always a student category,
Exactly.
Think about all the directors we've had on this podcast, Nick, that are going to love that data.
Yeah.
And it's possible that I've watched enough student films to make up for the
everybody else
that haven't.
Likewise.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've watched a lot.
Being a juror at film festivals, and Nick, I'm speaking for you a little bit here, so if I have it wrong, just tell me I have it wrong. It changed the way that we watch movies and judge them and rate them, period. Yep. Because once you realize sort of how, basically when you start watching movies, that happens through your TV or through the theater experience. And so your spectrum, let's call it the Overton window. Your Overton window for film is narrow. And then when you actually start watching experimental films and different types of modes of film, and you watch student films all the way up to, all these things. So then that Overton window is really huge, and a lot of things can slide in, and you judge it a little bit differently. Audience of this podcast, go watch some student films. We brag on you guys a lot. I'm not taking that back. You guys are smart. You know your movies. You're passionate. But homework assignment from old Chris here. Go watch some student films and see if it changes that for you too. See if it broadens your aperture for what a good film is and isn't or could be.
Well, that's the thing, Chris. And that's the interesting thing about this, is that when you're looking at a student film, you literally have to change the way that you're judging them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. You cannot use the rubric of your favorite films of all time and then judge those films based off of that. So that's the thing. But you have to do that. Like, you honestly have to say to yourself, okay, what am I judging here?
Yeah.
What am I considering here? And I think that's what it is. It's kind of like you start to look at them and see where's the potential versus where are some areas that they could refine or improve. Because I think once you change it that way, then you start to really appreciate the potential. And then you can also appreciate the fact that they are students and they have made the choice to work on those things. Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can make it easy because Boogie Nights by Paul Thomas Anderson
PTA
was actually the feature-length version of his student film, The Dirk Diggler Story. Mm-hmm. So you just go check out that, who hasn't seen Boogie Nights, and then you can really see where it starts and where it finishes. And there's a similar story with Bottle Rocket, which wasn't
Sean Baker.
A student film. Oh, that's Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson, sorry.
Yeah, the first Wes Anderson film. It wasn't...
Cut that out, CK.
No, don't cut it out. Leave it in.
It wasn't made... It was made shortly after he was in school. But it's a similar idea.
Oh, wow.
There's a short film with that, and it became a feature-length film. So
that's great advice.
It makes it easy. Yeah.
That's really great. And I would say read the original script for Forrest Gump, then actually watch the movie Forrest Gump. And you can kind of see the maturation of filmmaking. I think American Psycho is like that, the same way. Wait, is that the name of it, Sam? With Christian Bale?
Yeah. American Psycho.
Yep.
And then one other little fun fact, because you mentioned PTA, Sam. Now this is a micro things we should know. How can you tell when you're reading someone's script that they really love PTA? Paul Thomas Anderson. I can tell you how. You want to know how?
The Parent-Teacher Association. Got it.
No. Here's how you tell that the person you're reading, because we've done that. We did that in a former life, Nick, where we were giving notes and reviewing and doing coverage on scripts. How you know is that if a character cries, they will write, Mariah cried her eyes out. Which that's how Paul Thomas Anderson writes in all his scripts. Cried your eyes out. He always says, cried their eyes out.
It's pretty interesting because Paul Thomas Anderson, this is a total rabbit hole, but Paul Thomas Anderson is kind of the director's favorite director. Like if you learn about it, like he did and does redrafts and mock-ups for a lot of films that get made. He did famously not last year, 2 years ago, I guess. He did a redraft of Killers of the Flower Moon. Mm-hmm. So he's got his thumbprint on a lot of stuff in Hollywood, and he is part of the TCM kind of rebirth. I think is not 100% sure on that one. I know he's involved with it, but I think that makes sense. He's very influential, and he definitely still has a big kind of pull on a lot of what Hollywood does. So.
100%. To me, he made the very best founder / entrepreneurial film of all time, which is There Will Be Blood. And if you've ever been a founder of anything before or had to build something where there's nothing, you will know exactly what I mean if you've seen that movie or if you go watch it. So There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis. Really, really incredible film for founder entrepreneurs and just a great film for anybody if they want to go watch it. Okay, Sam.
Wait, real quick, before he gets to his next one, I'm going to append to that and just say that if, as a founder, the starting point is There Will Be Blood, then you know what the sequel has to be.
It'll be milk. Oh, no.
Yeah. All right. What you got into
sweat and tears. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for the next poll, now I've already made my thoughts on the next poll pretty clear.
He's showing off this Belmont hoodie again for those just listening.
So as a rising motion pictures major at Belmont, it's pretty clear where I lie on this one. But is it worth it to pursue filmmaking at a traditional college? So to pursue a filmmaking major at a college that is broader, isn't necessarily a filmmaking college, isn't necessarily a film school. So happy to report, and I'm part of the statistic, yes, came in first with 71%.
Wow.
Followed by maybe, it depends on the student, with 15%.
That's good.
And then in dead last, kind of tied with number 2, but dead last is no, also with 15%.
Okay, Mariah, what do you think about that?
I like that. Wait. Dead last.
Also in dead last.
That's right. Dead last.
Dead last time.
That's because of the
You're very
background
subtle
of
with your opinion.
YouTube's. Right. Well, in the background,
I try to be
YouTube
unbiased.
is breaking down like the tenths, but then we'll only present the whole number to you. So it knows which one's in third, maybe, but it's like 14.9 versus 15.
No, that was a Samism.
Was it a Samism? Was it a
Samism? Yeah.
So maybe we flip flop second and third. But Mariah, what do you think about that? What are your feelings? I mean, you might be biased because you're at Vanderbilt, which isn't traditionally a film school, or the way people think about it. I've heard it called the Ivy League of the South. But do you have a different opinion, even though you worked there?
Well, yeah, and I can think about it from where I worked before, UNCW versus here. Obviously, that comparison's been happening a lot for me over the last year and a half. UNCW is a state school. It has a really good film program where students were coming in as a freshman, knowing that that's what they wanted to major in. We had a pretty rigorous way for them they had to have a certain GPA before they could get into the film program. We had a lot of students wanting to get into it. So the students I was teaching there were like, film buffs like Sam, and students that have known for years that this is what they wanted to go into. And there was something that was nice about that, right? That was like validation on my end. It's like, yeah, you love the same thing I love. You want to have the same type of career that I've had. Like it was this very nice relationship to have with the students. Yeah. Then I came to Vanderbilt, and this program is smaller, and it is where students tend to find us after they've already picked their major. So we have a lot of dual majors here at Vanderbilt, and especially in the CMA department. And we all know the reputation that Vanderbilt has, where students are coming in probably more in the sciences or engineering or one of those types of things. So students are discovering this. And that was a shift for me as a instructor, as an educator, of working with a different type of student. But the joy that I'm finding in that is really cool. Like I'm meeting people that are like taking one of our classes and discovering this for the first time and being like, whoa, how can I include this in what I want to do in my life? And that's just a really cool thing to be a part of. I mean, I love working with this age group in general, and I love mentoring and helping people figure out what their trajectory is going to be. But to see people that are discovering it is like almost kind of more exciting for me at this point. Because I get to be a part of that discovery process for them. But then I also get to be a part of that reassurance of like, I know this is different than what you were thinking, and maybe not as clear of a career path as what you were headed on, but like, how can we combine your interests? How can we talk about, how you can do both, or how you can find stability in this type of thing? So I think, the type of school, whether it's a film school or more of a general school, but also just the type of reputation that school has and what the students are coming in with, all plays into it. And I've had both experiences, and both of them have perks, and it's cool to do something different after I did the other one for a long time. I was at the other university for 10 years. And now I've been here a year and a half. So this has been really exciting for me to just be a part of that discovery for students.
That would have been really exciting for me, Chris. I know that for a fact. Like if I had been able to participate in that, and not just because I have that creative side, but I think it was actually something that you said earlier, and I know Chris is going to love this when I say it, harkens back. Anyway,
thank you, Edgar.
Right. So you said something earlier that really has stuck with me now, which is that it's almost like the counseling that you do with the students. And I love VU, love Vandy, go Doors, all the things. However, I can't say that across the engineering curriculum that I was in, I did computer science and I did math. I didn't have that connection with the majority of my professors. I mean, the classes were huge for one. And then for two, like you said, well, if you're also doing research, well, you might finish that class and then go off and do research. So when you mentioned this idea of really counseling the students and finding out what they're interested in and helping to grow them, if you are in an engineering program at Vandy, that would be like a breath of fresh air where it's like, wow, I get to interact with this person and maybe be a part of what she's doing. That to me would be enough to be like, yeah, I totally want to do this, because it is not polar opposite, but it does give a different type of balance to your education there at Vandy.
Yeah. And I think there's room for both, right? I think there's room for both of those things to exist. And I think that's what's been really fun for me, being at a school where this isn't the main focus or what the students thought, right? I get to be a part of the surprise that they didn't know was going to happen in their education here. So I think that's what I've been really enjoying about it.
I like that.
Sam, I have to say that if I were to vote, and I didn't get to vote in this particular poll, unfortunately, but if I were to get to vote, I probably would have voted depends on the student. And I am surprised that not more people voted that way, right? Because your situation dictates sort of how you step forward. And I also just think, too, that the poll should have been more even across all three answers, because you would think somebody would take the counter of the winning option, which is, well, all of my heroes, all of the people I love and follow, and all the things I've heard, they either didn't go to film school at all, like they were Robert Rodriguez or whatever, or they went to USC, or they went to NYU or Yale or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I am surprised by that a little bit.
I think it's interesting. Big part of the reason I chose Belmont was because it wasn't just a film school. Having that perspective and having, so many different majors and so many different perspectives on campus was something that was important to me. They have a fantastic film program that I'm excited to be a part of course. But having those other avenues and having those different areas to interact with students and learn different things, I thought was something that I really wanted to make sure I had while I was in college and to get that college experience. So I personally totally agree with yes. I think it does depend on the student. I think you are correct in that. But I do think if you are interested in filmmaking, want to pursue that, definitely don't always think you have to go to a film school. There's definitely other options, and there's definitely, both experience and knowledge to be gained at a traditional college, for sure.
And I like our audience. Yeah. I like our audience because the second answer, I do. I enjoy them. I appreciate them. I love them. I do. I enjoy them. And the reason for that in this case is because they didn't give just the right answer, which would have been that middle one. I think we can all agree, right, that's right. But they gave the right and the positive answer. Yeah. I think that's what I like, is that they lean towards positive. Like, yes, why not? Give me, there's no reason. Because even the one, like, if you take the whole body of, the whole student body, all people who could possibly go to school, it's like, maybe you do want to get into the school that's strictly a film school. But you know what? If you don't get into it, then one of these schools can serve you well as well. So it's still a positive. So that's what I like. I like the fact they picked that positive response. But then again, that aligns with who we are and what we do. So I think we might, Sam, we had some influence on that. Yep. Our positivity is bleeding into our audience.
Well, I'll add to it that, I think at the core, what are we doing? We're telling stories, right? Yep. And we're communicating. And without life experiences, what stories do we have to tell? So if I just have a one-track mind that I just focus on one thing, where is that life experience coming from, So I think that's one thing that I think is great about it, is that you have students coming from different backgrounds, different experiences, different goals. It makes for a more diverse and creative world of stories that we're getting out of them. Whenever students talk to me about grad school, this is my personal opinion. Somebody might have a different one, but I always suggest waiting a little bit between undergrad and grad, because your graduate experience is going to be that much better if you're pulling from life experience. If you're just been a student since the age of 5 straight through, what's the difference between undergrad and grad for you then?
Yeah.
And I think grad school can really be that space to like really find yourself and to really find, if we're talking about the creative world, really find your voice and what you want to express. But without life experience, it's hard to do that.
Yeah. 100%. I couldn't agree more. And that was the exact advice the late, great Wayne Perry gave me about songwriting many, many years ago. He said, go out and live a crazy life, and then you'll be songwriting will be a breeze. All right, Sam, you did it again. Thank you so much for your audience polls. And for us, let's pay some bills, and we'll be right back.
Hey, what's up, folks? This is kind of a special little, not an episode, but a little snippet for you guys. I wanted to do a special shout out and promotion for a former guest of the podcast, Chris Haley. He joined us in 2023 for a special Juneteenth episode. I think that was actually episode 278. You should check it out. Make a podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I don't think we have that episode up on YouTube just yet, but please do check it out. If you didn't listen to the episode, Chris Haley is the nephew of the world-renowned author of Roots, Alex Haley. And Chris, I'm going to say Chris, don't think of Chris Barkley, co-host of the Make It podcast, still talking about Chris Haley. He's the research director of the Legacy of Slavery in Maryland, and he's also the co-director of the film Unmarked, about the neglected African-American burial sites in the American South. That film is now playing on Apple TV and Amazon Prime Video. But today, I'm giving him a special shout out because we're recognizing a new achievement in Chris's career. He's got a new book of poetry out. If you didn't know, he's also an author. He's got several other books out as well. But his new book of poetry is entitled When Did I Know I Was Black? And it is now available on Amazon. In a second, I'm going to step aside and let him go ahead and recite one of the poems by his selection himself. But I'd like to give just a little bit of kind of personal context to this book, When Did I Know I Was Black? And also to the poem that he's gonna read. Now, the poem that he's going to recite has nothing to do with my personal experience, but I feel like there's that connection, which is why it's kind of exciting to talk about this from the perspective of me and the Make It podcast. So it's kind of funny thinking about this idea of when did I know I was black? Because I often refer to myself as just African American, right? Even though, people are going to say, well, you're black, you're a black guy. Yeah, true in kind of that social context sense. But my race is African American. And this idea of knowing when you're black or realizing you're black, I think for me, that really reminds me of like when I was in middle school and a bunch of my friends and my white friends would say to me, it's like, Nick, you don't act black. I'm like, well, what does that even mean? And they would point to somebody else. I'm like, act like that. You don't act like that. And I was like, well, what does this mean? I am black, right? Because by virtue of being African American, I'm black, right? No, that's not the case, at least not in my experience. I think those times in my life when I realize or when I know that I'm black is really when I'm being compared to a stereotype of what African American behavior is, and maybe even being looked at under a different connotation of blackness. When I look up, and I've done this before at different times in my life, you kind of look up the definition of like, what is black? What does black mean? And obviously it's going to be related to, African Americans and people with dark skin. But also if you keep looking and you look at the definition of black, it says reflecting or transmitting little or no light. Another definition is thoroughly sinister or evil, or indicative of condemnation or discredit. And I think that's how I connect with that title of when did I know I was black? I think it's when I feel that being an African American is or has the connotation of being black as defined by Webster in the ways that I just defined it, when I feel that someone's looking at me in that way, or someone refers to me as black because they're thinking about those things, that's when I realize I'm black. So again, I thought it was a really interesting title that Chris chose. Again, Chris Haley. And I thought it was worth mentioning and shouting him out. Again, there's a personal connection between me, his book, and his poetry. Personal connection as, again, Chris Haley, past guest of the podcast. But also, as we've told every guest that we've ever had, hey, we're all about supporting our community, giving back in any way that we can. And when you do something great, like distribute a book, even let's just say write a book of poetry or otherwise, we're here to shout you out. So with that, I'll step back and step aside, if you will, and let Chris Haley, the author of the book, When Did I Know I Was Black, that is now available on Amazon, I'll let him go ahead and recite one of his poems for you.
Pinocchio. I'm angry and black. You're racist and white. I'm tired of these memes, but if I may be bold, I'm sick also of your claiming Dr. King's dream as your bigot-free code. You would have hated him. And Jesus, too. He was poor and Middle Eastern, lest you forget. They both wanted the rich to give to the poor. You would have seated them side by side on a boat named Liberal Threat. Tell me that I'm lying. Tell me their positions are those you share. I'll stand here watching as your nostrils flare and your snout grows. The nose knows, Pinocchio.
And we are back. And just in time for producer Papa Bear to bring us some things we should know. How did you like that pregnant pause right there, Nick? Was that satisfying?
Oh, that was, I think you might have had twins.
That was a full 9 months.
Yeah, right. Yeah, at least.
I love it. I'm the master of that. No one can touch me. I'm the Michael Jordan of pregnant pauses. Okay.
You're the Captain
You're the
Kirk.
goat.
See, I don't like that because I don't know if Captain Kirk was the greatest captain ever.
No, it's the pregnant pause. He's the best. Honestly, you cannot find another.
Captain
another
Kirk
person.
is the Michael Jordan. So you're saying I'm the Kobe.
There you go. You're the Kobe.
Yeah, I'm Kobe. Okay.
Yeah, you can't beat Kirk.
Yeah, I can't beat him. All right, Papa Bear, drop some things we should know.
Okay, but first, I'd like to make a comment about something we had discussed already.
You see who?
And that was pregnant.
Yes.
No. Camaraderie. When we were talking about camaraderie, it made me think camaraderie is a byproduct of the filmmaking process, because the filmmaking process is collaborative, and collaboration is the catalyst for camaraderie.
Wait.
So,
Say it again. Exactly, Chris. You got it. See, you jumped in on that. Say it again.
Collaboration is the catalyst for camaraderie. How many C's are in there?
Well, we can add some more because
let's play the alliteration game. What's the next one? What's the next scene, Nick?
The next thing that I was going to say is that's wonderful. Okay, because
doesn't start with C.
No, listen. Because that is at the core.
Okay.
Of the coursework.
Oh my God.
For the Commodores.
Oh, man. Pull it out.
I'm saying it in every class now. That's it.
See?
That's how we start every class.
Collaboration is the catalyst for camaraderie,
which is at the core of the coursework for the Commodores.
Sam,
somebody write that down for me.
Right. Chris is over there writing it down right now.
Sam, do you have a C you can add to that? Is there any other C words that make sense? Coursework. Core of the coursework for the Commodores.
I'm pulling you. I'm trying.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, I think this.
Wait, come on, Sam. You need to communicate with Chris.
There you go.
Nick could do this all night.
All night.
He just stole your cheese, sir.
That's right.
All right, Papa Bear, give us some things we should know.
Okay. Well,
This audience explodes with anticipation.
That's right.
yeah. Since we're talking about Vanderbilt, a thing we should know, and perhaps a professor would know this. Who was the first of only 2 former Vanderbilt University students to have won an Academy Award? And for what film?
Wow.
Oof.
So there's 2 Vanderbilt students who have won Academy Awards,
Mm-hmm.
and we also need to know the films they did it. The films they did, but not the year. Thank God.
Well, I saved you of that this time, but you're welcome to throw it in there. It's not
This is
1914.
Right.
I can at least just pull the card that I'm new, right? How long?
Right. Yeah.
I was thinking about that. You may not.
Let's see here.
Yeah, I'm new.
Let me just ask you this, Papa Bear, because we're going to be so wrong. Now, what's interesting is Nick and I have been ideating around a documentary series for at least a year and a half now. And maybe Nick will win that award next, and then that'll be an easier question to answer.
I like it.
Is there any clue? Like, are these people
Can we ask for
famous?
a hint?
Yeah. Are these people famous? Like, would we have any chance of guessing their names?
Or is it Lubin Manufacturing Company?
Yes. Like that,
I'll tell you this.
we need to know, like,
You will definitely know the second one.
dang.
And that that's what we're that's what
And that's the
we're
one you're
guessing.
asking us. Yeah.
No, the first the first of the 2 former Vanderbilt University students.
Okay.
It was Rich. It was Rich Hull.
Oh,
and
Rich
the movie
Hull.
was She's All That.
Rich Hole.
Was that right?
No.
No.
Damn it.
I was going to say Rich Hole.
Shout out to Rich Hole.
Well, I got to give it to him. I mean, it's a very important movie in the zeitgeist of teen film.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh. When I watched that
She's All
podcast,
That.
I was just like, that's me. That's my age range. Like She's All That was my high school. That was fantastic. I loved that movie.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Nick, this is where we lean on you a little bit, and Mariah, you as well. Who are the famous people? Because here's what I'm thinking. Was there a poet laureate or something? Was there some academic that came out of Vanderbilt that's super famous that somebody
Did they
made a
graduate?
film after?
They did graduate. And in
great
fact,
like this might not be
the
a
first
filmmaker,
one,
Nick.
was on the advisory board of the National Student Film Institute, and his film and TV papers have been given to Vanderbilt University Library in Nashville. So now you know, there's a hint, it's a male.
Yep. You gave us that. That really narrows it down, I have to tell you.
Yeah, it does. It does really. Like I'm zoning in on that person right now and see him.
Super
If it was a female, it would have narrowed it down.
Right.
Even further, yeah.
Does anybody know any, Sam, do you know any famous VU graduates? There's got to be a lot of them.
Sam's looking it up.
There's
on
a
the
lot. I don't know.
There's a lot of athletes I could think of, but I feel, PB, last clue. Maybe last clue. Was it an athlete? Were either of these people former VU athletes?
No.
I was going to guess Will Purdue somehow in a sports documentary.
No, Chris, because frisbee is not a real sport.
No, he actually
a basketball player.
he actually majored. Listen to this. He actually majored in political science.
Yeah, well, it sounds about right.
Okay.
Hey, wait, Chris, I got to say this real quick.
Okay.
No. Like ultimate frisbee is a real sport. I was just joking.
It definitely is. Shout out to
I
Mark
was just saying that because when we were out on the lawn, right, alumni lawn, we played a lot of frisbee. Like that was the thing.
Yeah.
We did.
I had so many great experiences on the lawn at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
I have a ton of really incredible stories from the lawn, but the best one
Is this it?
by far Oh, there you go. Well, look at that Easter egg.
That's an image of the National
Good background
Arboretum.
choice.
Yeah, that is Vanderbilt.
Yeah, well done, PB. For those listening, his background is say it again, Nick.
The National Arboretum that is Vanderbilt.
There you go.
But I don't see any squirrels.
I don't see any squirrels, which are all over the place at Vanderbilt. So I'm on the lawn with my friend Tommy Zhao. Tommy Zhao, shout out to you. I think he's a plastic surgeon in Kentucky right now. So if you're listening, Tommy,
they need it.
Just miss you, buddy. Shout out. They need him. Oh my God. To all our fans in Kentucky, we apologize.
Don't worry, they'll be replaced by Greenland.
The man said the state.
State needs a plastic surgeon. Okay. All right. So rewinding from that. So,
right.
Famously, Vanderbilt has a lot of like senators and congressmen and women's children that go there. We get that. That's part of it. Well, I'm with Tommy, which isn't one of those people, but we are on the lawn, and we both work at Abercrombie and Fitch at this time. This is like think early 2000s Abercrombie, not today's.
So you and Tommy are going to be in the documentary. Got it.
Probably, okay. Yeah. And so this kid walks up, and apparently he was a senator's son. And he walks up to Tommy, he grabs the back of his collar, and he flips it open, and he says, "Abercrombie's for peasants." And then walks away. And he just sashes. It was a sachet. He didn't walk away. He kind of sashayed away. Like it was a very, very a flamboyant walk away, I would say, like a showy walk. And I was like, that is amazing. Wow, what an experience that was.
Chris, you keep telling the story, but I really don't remember doing that. But then again, I didn't have golden locks that I could flick up in the air as I
What? That's just one of so many. Anyway, Papa Bear.
Okay,
I will tell you something. I will tell you something about these things we should know. We have no guesses. It's not even that we're guessing wrong. Yeah, we don't know even where to start with this. So drop us the answers here. What is this?
Both.
Yep.
I want both.
Yeah, we're going to get both.
Okay.
Delbert Mann, Mann, won an Oscar for Best Director for the film Marty in 1956.
Oh, wow.
Wow, 56.
Hold on. What was his last name? McMahon?
No, just Mann. Delbert, like Dilbert in the comics, but Delbert with an E. Mann.
2 N's?
Yep. Best Director.
What was the name of his film?
Marty, Marty.
I've never even heard of that movie.
Ernest Borgnine.
Oh, I've heard of Ernest.
Definitely.
Yeah.
1956. The film came out in 55, but obviously the Oscars were held after the new year in 56.
Okay. Delbert Mann. Okay.
The other is more recent. Tom.
I thought he was going to say his name was Maurice. I was like, no.
No. He just gave you the answer. His name is more recent. More recent.
Right.
No, we're out of guesses, PB. Give us the answer.
Right.
Tom Schulman.
Tom Schulman. Yeah, we would have given that was falling out of
Sam, we're supposed to know.
Intern Sam, do you know Tom Schulman?
I've never heard of him.
He won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay for the film Dead Poets Society.
Oh my God!
In 1990.
I'm writing this down right now.
We need to know that. That was something we should know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
Nailed it. That's the name of the segment. Yeah, we definitely should have known that.
DB, you did it again.
He got
but that is definitely a thing we should know.
But this is the best one ever, I think. I mean, Dead Poet Society, man.
Tough call. But Dead Poet Society, yeah. I mean,
and Vanderbilt. Come on, man.
Can you imagine being at a cocktail party in Surratt at Vanderbilt University's campus, and then you break that out?
Well, you should play. It should be standard watching. That's what I'm saying. Like this is now part of the curriculum.
Yeah, we're gonna have to watch it every semester.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be built into the curriculum at Vanderbilt?
That's what I'm saying. She's gonna make it happen.
It is now. It is now.
Yes, I love this.
I can't believe they didn't lead with that in my job interview.
See, yeah, hey, because they didn't know, and now
they didn't.
Boom.
Now they will.
Now
And
Tom Schulman.
Well, Tom Schulman wrote this, and he went to locally. He went to Battleground Academy.
Okay, BGA. Yeah.
And the character that played the older guy, professor. What was the professor's name?
Is Robin Williams' character?
Well, no, the
not Robin.
professor.
Yeah. The older one. Okay.
Yeah, he was modeled after one of his teachers at BGA. So that's where he got the idea.
We should know. Well, just wait till I tell people this.
And
I'm going to be watching that movie this week. Like,
I'm kind of glad we didn't know because it's going to stick with us more now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like it's more meaningful.
God, how did I not know? Yeah.
That's a great.
Oh yeah, I'm watching that movie.
Papa Bear.
It's wonderful.
Thank you very much. You did it again. That is definitely a thing we should know. Nick, can you walk us into some Filmmaker Q&A, our segment dedicated to this wonderful audience of filmmakers and creatives and would-be filmmakers and film lovers? Can you lay out some questions here for Mariah?
Definitely. And it's going to be fun, and it's interesting because I have my own questions, but that I was thinking of, but I also decided to go out to the interwebs and look also at Reddit because that's also a great place where people are honestly, they're always asking questions and people are providing answers. So I thought I would ask some questions that I found there too. But the first thing is, what three things, right? Okay, three things should every film student know when they graduate? Now we can say no or know how to do, right? Either one.
Okay.
I think they should know how to network, which is kind of funny that I would say that above the other ones that I'm going to say next. But I think just the word network sounds so like boring and sounds like something you don't want to do and sounds like you like have to be like super professional and like all
sounds
of that.
So LinkedIn,
It sounds terrible. I wish there was a different word for it. But it's just that idea of being able to talk to people and to genuinely be curious about what they're doing, rather than just talking to them to get something from them. And just really being curious to build that connection, because you never know when you're going to meet somebody again down the road or, run into them again. And it's that connection that you had from some other experience that you went through. So that's the primary goal of the film festival, is this whole idea of networking and giving them a space to network with their peers, right? Like not going and networking with people that are already in the industry, networking with each other, because when they get out there and they're starting things and doing things and they run into each other again, it's building it from the ground up for them, that foundation. And that would go across to anything, not just a film student. But especially in the creative world where the collaboration is so important. And then if we're talking about a production student, which I teach primarily production classes, I think that they should know how to run a camera, right? Not one camera, but just understand the basics of how a camera works. And then they should know how to edit. Because if you want to rely on somebody else to edit your film, and you have no knowledge of what's going on, there's a lot of control in editing. So if you want to maintain control over your story and your project, you should understand that part of the process. So even if you're not going to edit your own projects, understanding the process, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I like that. And that first one,
really great
Chris.
point.
Yeah, that first one, Chris, I love the second two, right? I think as a film student, you're spot on. I think maybe anyone, right? I mean, what if you're a sound engineer coming out? Like, I feel like just having that knowledge of a camera and the knowledge of editing, I think is great. But that first one, I would just want to key into what you said about networking, because I think we all know this, but I don't know that anyone has ever articulated it the way that you did, which is the basis for all valuable and long-lasting networking is genuine curiosity. I mean, honestly, it's like that really, that's it. Like, that is the answer. Like, and honestly, I'm going to go through my LinkedIn. I'm like, wait a second. Where do I have genuine curiosity? And if I don't, they're out. I mean, any social, right? Any social media account that you have that you're following, I think that's the rubric, is that, do I have a genuine curiosity? And if I do, cool, I keep it up, because I want to know, I want to be educated by that person, I want to be entertained by that person, whatever it is. If it's just there because maybe, you knew them in high school, right? And you're just passively, their stuff is showing up, that's different. But I think that genuine curiosity is really good. Now, as a film student, like Sam, what was your takeaway from that?
Well, I think the networking is definitely the most important. I think that's what I've heard. That's what is repeated. I think that's an incredibly important thing that a lot of people forget about. I also do agree. I think knowing how to run a camera is definitely important. I am not a student at Belmont yet. I took a production course at Columbia State, which is a local community college. And
Shout
that
out
was
to
something,
Columbia State, one of our sponsors. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that was something that was really important that everyone knew how to do, was get hands-on experience with the camera, because it's very complicated. And even just having the different lenses and different pieces, being able to ask for them and get them, cameras assembled and things, it's very important to know, the procedure for that, and the procedure that doesn't end with, an $100,000 camera in the floor. So I think that it's really important. And I think the editing is also very important. I think all three are very important, but the editing really stood out to me, because you're 100% correct. That's where the magic of the film is made when you shoot it, but it comes together in the editing bay. That's where it becomes a film. It's otherwise kind of just ideas. You have to find the cohesiveness, the bridge to bring it all together. So I thought it was a fantastic answer. I think all three are great.
Mariah, are you guys teaching Premiere, Final Cut, or DaVinci?
Yeah, we do Premiere Pro. Yep.
Okay.
I'm teaching Art of Editing this semester, so I just taught it right before this podcast.
Is that what you've always used? I know you've done a lot of editing.
I've used Premiere and Final Cut. Yeah, I've gone back and forth between them depending on the university I'm at. I prefer Premiere.
Yeah.
The one that I don't have a lot of experience on is Avid. I've done a little bit on Avid, but most of my experience has been Premiere or Final Cut.
What do you think about DaVinci?
I haven't used it a ton. Use it somewhat with the Blackmagic, just because of how easy it handles the footage and things like that. We have access to it here. Students use it here. But I'm a habit type of person. So like my first camera was a Canon. So I tend to go towards Canon, and there could be no real reason for that other than it's just because it's what I know.
Yeah.
And I constantly am talking to students about, like, try different things. Don't do the same thing. But then I look at myself and I'm like, oh God, I keep gravitating. And I think it's the same thing with Premiere.
That is so true. And I'll just go say this before Nick asks this next question. For years, it was always go get the Canon 5D, go get the Canon 5D, go get the 6D. That's the indie filmmaking camera. And now all of a sudden it's the Sony FX3 or get the Sony FX6. And now everybody wants that. And it's just, you're basically copying the other person's idea over and over and over again. It's like, honestly, you could do it on anything for the most part.
Well, and I guess that, yeah, that kind of ties into what I was saying, is like, learn the basics of how cameras work, but don't worry about that specific camera, because the technology is going to ever change. So you're always going to be learning new tools and new technology and new cameras and whatever advancement's going to happen in the technology side of things. You have to be a lifelong learner if you want to be in this. But knowing that you can collaborate, that you have people that you can ask questions to, people that you can lean on. It's like you have the person that's like really into tech stuff and is always up on the latest, greatest thing, and they're your friend. Then you don't have to be up on the latest, greatest thing, right? Like, so I think the technology is going to ever change. So be prepared to like constantly be learning and new things. Yeah. But that community that you build around you and who you can lean on for support when you're collaborating is vital.
It's huge. I get plugins like people get tattoos. Anyway, next question.
All right. So the next question is, I'm going to kind of preface this a little bit and say, if there is one, what is the best entry-level job for a film school graduate?
I don't know if there is one. It really depends on what you want to do and what you're interested in. Are you going into the indie world? Are you going into the studio world? Are you going into fiction? Are you going into nonfiction? Are you going into TV? Like I think people from the outside view it all the same, but when you get in there and see the nuance between it and the intricacies of it, I think the answer would change for all of those. I think one way to think of it for students is that your time in college is your time to try different things. I think I get students quite often that are like, I know I want to be a cinematographer, so I want to do everything with cinematography to become the best cinematographer I can be. And there's some merit behind that, right? Like you do want to do something over and over again to become good at it. But there's also the time and the resources and the equipment and the people around you to try things that you're scared to try, that you've never tried before. There's a lot of room for failure, and money isn't necessarily depending on it. Like it's not your job. Somebody's not paying you to make that. So this is the time to try something to fail. So I think just trying to diversify and try a whole bunch of things while you're in college will give you a better idea of what that next step is supposed to be for you. And it's different for every student. It depends on what their goal is or what they want to work towards. And the only other thing I'll add to that is that what does that job actually look like? What is the day-to-day? When I went to undergrad, I went for TV broadcasting, and I started out working in Manhattan, and I was in live TV. And I was looking at all the supervising producers and executive producers around me, and I was looking at their daily schedule and what their life was like. We were live, so we were in at 7 a.m. We left at like 7, 8 p.m. on a good day. The PAs that we left at 11 p.m. Was that the lifestyle I wanted? Did I like this thing enough that was going to be my work-life balance?
Yeah.
And I think that people don't talk to young people about that enough, right? We're just like, you like this thing, do whatever it takes to do it. Find your passion and do your passion.
That's right.
Does your passion align with the lifestyle that you want to live? So I think that's another thing too, really seeing what that day-to-day of that job really looks like.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned the PA, because that's, I think, almost a through line through a lot of conversations that we've had, is that that's the first job. And it seems like that is one of the best jobs, even though it seems, and it can feel like grunt work. Mm-hmm. It's the job that touches every job. Mm-hmm. Right. So you get to be in there. You get to not only meet all these people that grows your network, but you get to see just what you said, which is you get to see the daily life. You get to see the experience. You get to see how they collaborate with others. You see how the director might relate to them, or the executive producer relates to people. And you can determine from that role what role you might want to take. Yeah. Now, even outside of the PA, I think there's some very famous people who started in the mailroom. Like what do you mean? Like, why would I want to work in a mailroom? Well, maybe for the same reason, or a very similar reason as being a PA, is you get to have this experience working with all different roles in the film industry. And one of the things that I was just kind of thinking of when you were talking, I was thinking about this idea of being a PA or in the mailroom. One of the cool things about those positions is that what you're learning is how to be in service to others. And I wonder if there's something in the film school program where it is outside of the normal cinematography, sound, writing, all this, that is just about being in service to others. And there is a thing. It's called a film festival. Yep. Right? So being part of the festival, especially, you're a volunteer. Yep. You're not getting school credit for it necessarily. You're not getting paid. You're not a cinematographer. You are working the door, right? You're greeting people. You're an usher. You're now facilitating the Q&A afterwards. Your job is to be in service to others. And if you can really do that, that to me is kind of like that gateway to anything and everything you might want to do in film.
These are salt of the earth people, by the way, volunteers at film festivals. I've never met a volunteer I didn't like.
Love volunteers. Yep. I know. And I think essentially what you're saying is put yourself in the location around the people that you're interested in the type of work that they do, right? How can you get yourself around it? And we always think it has to be a job or an internship, right? It can be a variety of different things. It can be a volunteer. This one's a really fun one. You can be a background actor. Like a lot of times in Wilmington, there was always looking for background actors. My son was just a background actor on production that's filming here in Nashville. He's only 9, but cool. I got to go with him and be on set. And it's like, you're sitting there watching everything that's happening with no pressure on you, right? You're a background actor. You stand where they tell you to stand and do what you have to do, but yet you get to watch everything that's happening. And I think a lot of times as a student, they'll feel the pressure of like, they have to find a job or they have to find something that, I don't know the right word, but feels important. Yep. And you can find the most simple way to get yourself around this to see if it's something you really want to be doing.
That's similar to how I got into it. I got my start, and what really set me on this path was a reality show. So it's similar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to say you were the Gerber baby or something, man. I was like,
no, it was MasterChef Junior. So that's where I got started. Yeah. That's right. So, but I definitely agree. I think that background acting and those types of things that you wouldn't necessarily think of, they're kind of unconventional. Just getting that set experience and seeing how things worked for me, it got me into it. And I think that it can open a lot of doors.
And you can put that on your resume and you can say, I cut my teeth acting across from.
Exactly.
I love that.
Good.
I like the spin.
Yeah. For sure.
And just as a callback, I mean, Sam's sitting here with us because he appreciated networking. He networked with us, and here we are. Anyway, continue.
All right.
All good.
There we go. All right. Let's go on to this next one. This one is kind of a combo platter, if you will, and about film festivals. So this is the question. What 2 things should every filmmaker take into a festival? Mm-hmm. And what 2 things should every filmmaker leave with?
Mm-hmm. Take in and leave with. Okay.
That's right.
I think take into the festival is an open mind, that you're there to be around like-minded people. You're there to see other people's work. You're there to celebrate your own work. You're there to have a really good time, but you're there also to be professional and to promote yourself. Because I think a lot of times, especially in the indie world of filmmaking, it's about being proud of your work and being able to speak about your work and articulate what your interests are and what you want to do next. But it's also about discovering what other people are doing, what your peers are doing, like you don't want to work in this vacuum where you don't know what else is out there. So I think going into a festival with a really open mind of like, I'm just going to experience this for what it is. And festivals are very different, right? Like you could be at a small, very like niche mom and pop type of festival, or you could be at a larger regional festival, or you could be at one of the big festivals. But I think if you went into all of those with an open mind, you're going to come out of it with what the creatives of that festival were hoping to give you. If you're going in there being like, this is what I need out of this festival, maybe that wasn't their goal when they created that festival.
Right.
So if you kind of ride that wave of what they created for you, I think you'll get a lot out of it. And I don't know if there's a second thing really, I mean, other than just this idea of preparing yourself and being ready to talk about your work and to articulate your creative process and why, is really important. I talk to students. One of the things we're going to do at the festival is we're having a filmmaker workshop. So the filmmakers that are screening their films at the festival, we're having a workshop the day before, and we're going to go through like how to do a Q&A, what to expect from a Q&A, how to network with your peers, how to talk about your work. Because all of those things can be really intimidating and really scary if it's your first time doing it. But one of the major reasons that audiences come to festivals is to hear the filmmaker talk. Like they don't want you to say, what was the ending about? And you be like, oh, it's for your interpretation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't want that. They want some sort of substance from you. So how can you talk about your project to give them more than they would have gotten if they watched your film without you there? So what is it that really drove you to make the project? What's some weird little serendipitous thing that happened while making the film? Like people feel connected to that and they want to feel connected to you. That's why they're at a festival. So I think just really mind
and a perspective, like your perspective. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah. And to take away, I mean, ideas, right? Like what you saw, what's out there, what's happening, that type of thing. So none of it's material things. It's all about experience, and it's all about, connecting with the people that have the same interest as you.
I like it.
I was thinking maybe you leave with a point of view koozie. Maybe that's one of the things you leave with. They are always giving those away at film festivals.
Yeah.
So a little beer koozie. Maybe
the team
point of view.
As much swag as you can get your hands on. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Got to leave. Well, I will say this, back to what we said about networking, and you got to leave with more friends than you walked in with. Right. And I think that's the key word there is friends. Yeah. It's not just business cards or IG accounts or whatever. It's like, no, you made some serious connections there because you did walk in with an open mind. And I think, and you brought a perspective that was interesting enough to share with someone that you made a new friend. So I would definitely say for me, it's always that thing where it's like, I want to leave there with a new friend that I can contact, whether it's just personally, like, hey, let's share some films that we liked or whatever, or it's a new collaborator that it started out as a friendship, but hey, they gave me a call because they remembered me from that festival, or I remembered them. And I think that's also a good thing to take away from those festivals.
Yep. Great call.
And that is it. That's all my Q&A. I wanted to, I had a list.
Very good.
I'm like, but no, I think that was good for the Q&A.
Very, very good
for today.
Well, we talked about the festival a lot, Mariah, but we haven't laid out all the details of it like in one succinct way. So I'm thinking maybe now is a good time to just say, what is the festival's name again? When is it actually happening? How do you attend? What are the categories, rules, et cetera, if you have that in front of you? Can you just lay that out for us?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's called the Point of View Student Film Festival. View is spelled VU because it's at Vanderbilt's campus. And the mission of the festival is to bring together students from all the schools across the Middle Tennessee region. This year we have 9 schools being represented. Belmont's one of them, Lipscomb, Columbia State, Austin P. Probably not going to list all of them, but we have 9 different schools from the region. We will be screening 24 films. We had 51 submissions. So anybody looking to submit, your odds are good, right? In the beginning years, this is our inaugural festival. We're hoping to get more submissions in the future. And we will be doing a film block on February 15th in the morning. Then we're going to have a panel discussion with local industry professionals. And then we're going to have a film block in the afternoon, and then we'll have an awards party at the end of the night. It is a competitive festival. So we have 3 categories. We have a fiction category, a nonfiction category, and then alternative. Our goal in the future is to break that alternative down into more specific categories. But with it being our first year, we weren't positive how many things we would get. So in that alternative category, we have animation, experimental, and music video right now. But the hope is that we'll be able to separate those out. I think the first one that'll probably get separated out is animation, because we did get quite a few animation submissions this year, which was really exciting.
That's interesting.
So again, it's on.
How many of those just as quickly were AI?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. Nobody revealed.
I'm curious, like, why there was such a big glut of animation, like a big run of that.
Yeah, I think it depends on the school and what type of programs and classes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I was just going to say the date again was February 15th. And it's free and open to the public. Yeah, free and open to the public. Visit us on Instagram so that you can see the location. It's in Surratt Cinema here on Vanderbilt's campus. But yeah, it's free. So we're hoping that we'll get a lot of audience members to come.
I will be there. I can go ahead and say that because I will be, solo dolo here. My family does a annual mission trip, and if you want to call it that, a philanthropic trip where we build homes in Central America. Typically, sometimes the group goes out to Africa, and so I am not making that trip this year. So I will be here.
Specifically because you wanted to go to the festival, right?
Specifically because I said
I let them know.
This conflicts with.
I love it.
the Point of View Festival. I cannot make it this year.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
our number one fan already. I love it.
So I'll be there. Surratt's a beautiful place.
Wait. No.
To be there.
Number 2. Come on now.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait a second.
Right. It's our Vandy alum. We gotta
Mariah,
stick together.
We'll see who's there.
We have students from MTSU. We have quite a few MTSU films.
So one of the things about MTSU that people don't know is that it's one of the most creative places on the planet. So there's a place in town that's owned by a friend of mine named Zach Liff, and he owns this place called Cummins Station, and he generally owns the Gulch, which is a popular area in Nashville. And if you go to Cummins Station on the bottom floor, he's a huge art lover. He's maybe the biggest art collector in town. And if you go on the bottom floor, it's all student art from Vanderbilt, TSU, MTSU. Look at the MTSU art that's down there. It's remarkable. Don't forget that Julian Baker came out of MTSU from I think it's, what is it called? Scared Rabbit Sam or Sacred Rabbit Records out of MTSU. It's one of those two. Papa Bear, can you look that up, what the record label is at MTSU? So they are actually like pumping out legitimate like pop stars and rock stars out of there. So it's a college that people may not know, but once you go into it, you find out, oh my God, there's like a huge creative push coming out of there. So I'm really happy that there's some films in there, and I can't wait to see them. I can't wait to see you in person and be there at the festival. So
that's a shout out to the True Blue, right? Is that correct? Did I get it right?
Shout out to the True Blue at MTSU, and shout out to the Point of View Film Festival. This has been such an amazing time. It's been so much fun to talk with you and get to know you better than before, Mariah. And I think this is just the beginning of something really great, and hopefully a wonderful filmmaking journey in partnership with you and with everybody here at Make It and the whole team. So I can't thank you enough for coming. We'll end on this. What does it mean for you to make it?
The question I've been waiting for all night. Yeah, I thought about it because you guys, you told me that you were going to ask me that. And I think for me, it is to be able to do something that I feel fulfilled in, and to also feel valued, and to be able to make a living doing it, right? Because it's like, somebody asks you, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? And it's like, I think I would still do something in this realm. I think I would do something creative, and I think I still would work with this age group of people. So I'm so happy that I'm able to support myself, support my family, doing something that feels really important to me and feels like I have different avenues, right? Like you can see that I'm involved in a variety of different things. It's different all the time. It's ever changing. I'm allowed to like move in this direction if I'm interested in this, or move in this direction if I'm interested in that. So I think just this idea of fulfillment, feeling valued, and then the flexibility that comes along with it. And it took a while to get here, right? It took a while to figure out that mix of things that would work to allow me to be able to do that. So yeah, I feel like my husband makes fun of me for this, but like, I feel like I've made it, right? Like I'm doing what I love. I'm making a living doing it, and I'm inspiring other people to kind of choose a similar path, which is pretty cool.
I love that. And I love the alliteration. Chris, did you get it? Yeah. Did you get it? Like the fulfillment, feeling valued, and flexibility. It's wonderful.
It's in my subconscious. You guys created this.
It's really well said. And I love the value piece. I think that stuck out to me too, because when I think about being valued, I think about what it is. Because I agree with you, Mariah, completely. Like, I would just be creating all the time. And it could be something as simple as putting together a Lego set or making music or making like whatever the creative sports is creative to me, competition, running, being an entrepreneur is a lot of fun for me. Like it's something I would do for free. And there's this moment that happens though, when you're creating something. So the other day I'm making music, Nick, and I'm making it I'm making bumper music for this podcast. And Sam, you've seen me do this before in the office. Like I'm making tracks and I'm like letting you guys hear it. Like, is this good? Is this hot? And there's this moment. So I'm playing this music that I made the other day, and in comes my oldest daughter and she starts dancing. And then my youngest daughter, who's 15, comes in and she's like swinging her arm, and she's like, then somebody else that's in the house comes in that starts filming themselves. You're going to do a TikTok now. And I'm like, that's it. That's what you're looking for. That's the moment. That's priceless. Like, I didn't have to ask them anything. I didn't have to try to push one way or the other. It was like, I know this is banging because they are dancing to it.
Right.
And they cannot control themselves. They cannot even help it. It was like, okay, that's what you make it for. I would do that for free. And getting that experience doesn't cost you anything either, except for, did you get the right combination of drums and fire and hotness that you put into the whatever you created? And I think film's the same way. There's no better feeling than being on set. I can't tell you, Mariah, how many former engineers, mathematicians, scientists have been on this podcast and said, I got an opportunity to be on set as a PA, and then I fell in love with it, and I just left behind my whole education that I spent $100,000 on. Like seriously, there's something magical about it. So I really love that answer. It really connects with me personally. And again, we appreciate you being on so much. Can you tell the people where they can reach out to you directly, where they can find you on social media, and where they can maybe see some of your work, like the documentary, This Is My Home Now, which was also very personal for me because my brother-in-law is Laotian.
Oh, very neat. Yeah. So personally, you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram, just Mariah Dunn Kramer. And then the film festivals, both of them. So I'm on the board of Up Tilt Film Festival, which is based in North Carolina. And our festival for that is happening in March. And we're also on Instagram for that. Or just Up Tilt Film Fest. And then the Point of View Student Film Festival is just the Point of View Student Film Festival on Instagram as well. And I think Instagram is the best for both of them because it's the most update information. And then the Point of View is happening February 15th.
Beautiful. And if you are listening to us right now, you probably already know that you can find us on Apple or Spotify. But did you know you can watch us on YouTube? It's much better to watch. I think there's something to hearing and seeing and getting the whole experience. So if you're listening, try us out on YouTube. Now, there is a function for audio only podcasts. So if you're watching us and you're like, I can't sit here in front of this TV or at my desk or on my phone the whole time. You know how you hold your phone so long, it starts to get numb because of the radiation or whatever's in that. So like, we know that's a thing. We know that's a thing. So you can listen to us. So if you're watching us right now, go to Apple, go to Spotify, give us a listen. And here's the thing. We are a small team. We are a mighty, but we're mighty. I say we're small, but we're mighty. And we get a lot done, but it's very difficult. And so if you want to help us out, here's how to do it. Like, rate, subscribe on all three of those platforms. So Apple, Spotify, YouTube. It really matters. It's not up to us. But these algorithms, if we want to be discovered, if you want others to find out what you're listening to, you got to share us, you got to like, subscribe, do the thing. It just takes a second, and it really makes a huge difference. We have incredibly soft and warm hoodies and crew neck sweaters at cottonbureau.com. Now, this is our partnership with cottonbureau.com, a place where they decline 90% of all designs. Our design is in there. It made the cut. That means it's hot. It means it's hot like fire. So go there, get that. And here's the deal. There is an Arctic front coming. This is going to be one of the coldest winters on record.
It's here.
So Nick's experiencing it already. Winter is coming. Yes, nice drop there, Mariah. So you're going to need these buttery, soft fleece hoodies and crew neck sweaters that allow you to wear your filmmaking journey right there on your chest. So go get that. It's cottonbureau.com. Search for the Make It podcast when you're there and pick one of those things up. You will not be disappointed whatsoever. And if you want to know a lot about us beyond what I just said, that's easy. Just go to themakeitpodcast.com and you can discover everything you want to know about us. And with that, Nick, can you please leave us with the credo?
Of course. And, before we leave, I have to say that it's amazing to have yet another connection to Vanderbilt University here on the podcast with us. It's been great to have you. And we'll be excited to participate in the film festival this year. I will try to get down there if I can. If anything, I'll send my MTSU True Blue proxy. I think we would love to be materially involved next year and the year after that and the year after that and help this thing grow. I know that Sam will be a part of that as well. PB, anything we can do to support you and just growing this community, we're here for it. So thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to shout you out and shout out the festival as well.
Yeah, so thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. So to our friends, our family, our fans, and our fellow filmmakers out there, we have to say, be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, Mariah, talk to you soon.
Yep. And you'll see Mariah on the 15th of February.
That's right. Off of there. Interns fam, we love you.
Yep. All right, guys.
Great camaraderie.
All done through the collective. Okay. All right.
That's right.
And we're out of here. Peace.
Bye.
See you guys.